Let's get started. Welcome to our Alignable Microsoft Productivity Power Hour for April. What we will be covering, we cover Microsoft Office 365, OneDrive for Business, SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, Microsoft Office, Forms, Power Apps, Power Automate, Power BI, and Microsoft Copilot, and more. We try to give you a different perspective on how to use the Office 365 system, so you can learn the art of the possibility. We like to have some interactive learning. So if you have any questions or anything that you want to have any information about, please put it in the chat, and we'll try to answer quickly as possible. I am Harry Carter, co-CEO of NCT Tech. As you see, there's my creds. I'll also be joined today by Nikia Carter, who will be doing a presentation on document libraries. And as you see, she has her street creds as well. As I said before, if you have any questions, use the chat window. Please put it in before you forget. Don't try to hold it and wait for it. Put it in the chat and we will answer you. So before we get started, I'd like to give you a cloud disclaimer. Microsoft Cloud Technology is a cloud-based technology, so things move, things get changed. I could be working on something right now and they could change a button or something here and there, but just give us a few minutes to look around a little bit and find our way forward. On today's agenda, we'll be talking about SharePoint document libraries, the more helpful ways to present what is SharePoint document libraries, what is metadata versus folders. We'll explore elements on the home page. We'll explore the document library scenarios. And SharePoint document libraries are essential for managing and sharing files within the organization. They enable seamless collaboration, allowing teams to work on documents simultaneously while maintaining version controls. Permissions ensure that sensitive information is protected. And integration with Microsoft Office 365 tools like Teams and OneDrive enhance overall productivity. Now, what is metadata? Metadata is data about data. It provides information that describes, explains, locates, or simplifies the retrieval, use, or management of data. By categorizing, structuring data, metadata makes it easier to search, organize, and understand your data. It plays a critical role in document management by providing context, structure, and security, making documents easier to find and manage while enhancing organization and supporting automation. Proper metadata management is essential for compliance and governance, ensuring that organizations can efficiently handle their information. If you're looking to get Microsoft Copilot, metadata makes the AI smarter, faster, and more efficient, enabling it to retrieve relevant data accurately, improve workflows automation, and support information decision-making. We will explore the advantages and disadvantages of using metadata comparing to traditional folders in SharePoint. While metadata provides greater flexibility and support automation, folders can help users visualize document organization. It's essential to elevate the needs of your team when deciding between these two approaches. So we're going to go into some demo. So let me end this real quick. See my screen. As over time, we've been building up Office 365 different features. This feature here is the SharePoint document library. And as you can see, we use the document library, the SharePoint site, sorry about that, the SharePoint site to be your home site, to be able to have collaboration, to be able to speak with others, work together on different projects and things of that nature. This right here will be your landing page, your home page. This will be your front door into your organization. And as you see across the top here, you have different doors to different areas of your organization that you'll be able to navigate to. Here you have your just an image to give you an understanding of what your organization is about. Over here you have a countdown clock. We have a grand opening coming in where we open a new organic fresh store. Here you'll be able to collaborate with your other teammates on different things, picnics, cookouts, where we're going to hold the next event, what we're going to have for lunch. Here you have the weather and the day and time of the area you're in. And it allows you also to have a place where so you be able to tell you have some place where you talk about yourself. What is the company about? Your core values, OKRs, your swag. You have announcements here where you have news announcements, different things you want your organization to know, the things you want to collaborate with others about. You want to be able to communicate. This is where you communicate with us. If you look here, you have different other areas where it's doorways to other areas within your organization, from marketing to education to finance to HR. You have frequently asked questions because, as you know, as you go out through the day, there are some questions that can be answered that a lot of people have that will not require them to call HR or call their boss or have to email. You can get some of these frequently asked questions here. Down here, you see we have different areas where though we add apps we able to use that the organization use as a whole, like a time off request, expense reimbursement. We even have a Microsoft Usage Analytic app, Power BI app here to be able to understand the usage of your SharePoint. How often are people coming in? How are they using it? Are they using things outside of this? Or are they actually working inside the organization and inside their SharePoint sites? We have an event calendar. We also have a Viva dashboard. This is a Viva connection dashboard where we have interactive cards where you could do things like have a time clock in, clock out for your shift, where you can have training, tasks assigned to you. You might even have work orders. You may even need a remote assistance. Or you've been working with someone and they've been doing an excellent job, so you want to give some praises to them. Or you want to maybe have some news that's coming in from outside your organization about Microsoft or about tools that your organization may need to learn about. And then we have Viva Learning here. Viva Learning is an interactive learning system within Teams and allows you to be able to learn on your own pace or even assign learning assignments to your employees. Down here, we have the corporate wealth, whereas though we are, important about keeping yourself healthy. So we like to promote that as well. Now, today we're going to focus on this doorway here. This is to retail sales. Let's already have it up. I'm going to just come over here. Inside retail sales, they have a place where though they have announcements, different things that are coming up. Monthly regional store updates. They have regional sales reports, inventory reports. They have a document libraries for managers to be able to work on that on their documentation. We even have a room just in case you have a Teams room where though you want to bring clients in and have a meeting inside the room, or you want to have a Skype Teams meeting, so that way you can book this room without being stepping on anyone else's toes. This team also use a revenue operational reports. So they come here and they be able to look at different reports and things of that nature. And they know where the revenue is and where they should direct their efforts. Different tools for managers, scheduling time, inventory management, regional store directories.
Mm-hmm. And that dashboard, that's a Power BI dashboard, correct?
Yes, that's a Power BI dashboard. Down here as well, we have apps for your cost estimator. So this organization estimate their costs by different people that they deal with, so they can estimate how much different vegetables, different things that need to to buy. They also have expenses, so to be able to, put in their expense reports. They may need extra cash for different things, for opening tables, chairs, who knows. So, this is for the expense report. But for today's lesson, we're going to go into document library and how we can use document libraries with metadata and tags. And I'm going to send this over to Nakia. So I'm going to start sharing and let you bring up your screen.
Alrighty. So tag teaming in. Okay, so as Harry was saying, the metadata that you get in your SharePoint document libraries can very much help with Copilot. So we know we got a request the last time to have a demonstration on Copilot, which we will, but we realized that we needed to slow it down a little bit and talk about the metadata that can help aid Copilot in its retrieval of information. Let me just close this real quick. Okay, alrighty. So I'm in the document library. I'm sorry, I'm in the SharePoint site that Harry was talking about. And I have a couple of examples here where, or at least one example where, this is probably the situation that you may be experiencing yourself at work when it comes to, oopsie, sorry, I'm missing something. Okay, when it comes to how you normally do your files right now. So if we go into this document library, this could most likely be a representation of what you normally see. You have a library with files in it where you're storing a bunch of different files and you have different folders. The problem, so you saw kind of the pros and cons on metadata versus folders, where, folders can help with that visual structuring, but it can be very hard to see down into the folder and understand everything that you have, so you can end up with redundant data and things like that. So if I go into one of these one of these folders, and I got a folder inside a folder, see, there we go, inside a folder, inside more folders, inside of more folders, and so forth and so on and on, ad nauseum, you can easily forget, where did I put that document, or where did that person say that document was? And then next thing you may have thought that it was on this level, here, but it doesn't show up here. So then you create it here, but it actually is down here in this level of folder, or it's further up and maybe in some other different level of folder. So it can be very hard to find things. Now you do have your search up here, which you could use to search things, but adding metadata can make it so much easier for you to be able to work with the items. So say, for example, here's a nice library, and I'm going to show you how we can create this type of scenario where you have a library and there's some folders, because it's still, if you're going to sync these folders or this document library, if you use the sync and you sync it to your computer and it shows up in your Windows Explorer, you don't want just a bunch of documents outside of folders. You need some kind of folder um, structure to keep things clean when you're looking at it in a Windows Explorer type view. But you don't want to go down too deep, because then you'll get lost. Things get lost. So we recommend only going down 2 levels, but also making sure that you're using metadata, no matter if you're going to use SharePoint document libraries in the browser through SharePoint, and or if you bring them down to your computer and you use the sync button and you're mostly working out of your Windows Explorer. You definitely want to, have some level of folder if you're doing that, but don't go too deep. And then use your metadata as I'm saying. So let's take, for example, FY25 folder, Q1, only 2 levels deep. Again, makes it the structure a bit more simple for those that need that visual structuralization if you're using File Explorer. Now, if you're not using the Windows Explorer, File Explorer, if you're only going to SharePoint and going into your document libraries, we recommend not using folders at all. But we could show you how you can do that as well. So we'll have both views so you can see that. But anyway, we have our folders that are 2 levels deep for the fiscal year and the quarter for these invoices that folks are submitting. Notice that there is a bunch of data here. These fields right here, or these columns right here, containing these data points are what's called metadata. So there's the file itself. This name is the name of the file. This column comes automatically with the document library. It automatically also comes with a title field, but that's not always shown. So sometimes you have to show it. But the reason why you put the name field and you have a title field is so that you can have a nice short name for your file name. But if you need a long descriptive name of what that document is, you could use the title field and put the long name there. Now, the reason for that, also the reason for not having so many folders also in SharePoint, is there is a character limit when it comes to your URL up here. Each one of these things has a URL. So it's not showing that I'm hovering. Sometimes it shows, actually it's not showing up. But each item, even folders, have a URL. And that URL can get longer and longer and longer, especially if you're using a whole bunch of folders, and you can end up breaking the URL. Once you break the URL, once it goes over 400, the 400 character limit, it breaks, and then you might get documents into that folder, but then you can't access them. They just are lost in the ether somewhere. So you want to make sure that your levels of folders aren't too deep also for that reason as well. And then you want to use short names, and then use your descriptive name right here. But then you can also attach other pieces of data to the document. So for example, this is the name of the invoice, the long title, and then they have a payment contact, the status, the due date, the name of the vendor, being able to record the invoice's date and the due date, and any order details. So each of these columns, again, is metadata. Metadata is data about data. Data about what? Data about the file. That is the data. So you can use metadata in order to help with being able to see things a little bit more easily. So for example, I'm going to go back to the main, and we could see the folders here. But I set up a view where if we didn't use folders, we're one of these people that don't go to our File Explorer. We go straight to SharePoint to our document library. Then we might not want to use our folders. We might want to use this thing called grouping. But you can set it even if you already have folders in your library. There's a way to create a view that takes all the folders out and puts in these things called groups. And these groupings look kind of like folders, except for it's kind of cool that you can open each thing and see what's in every folder. So you could have everything expanded so that you can see, oh, the document is actually there. It's in this part, not in that part. So that makes it a little bit easier for you to see it when you're using the browser version. But again, if you're using the File Explorer, you may need to use those folders, just 2 levels though. But some of the other cool things that you can do with this metadata is you can do lookups by it. So if I wanted to filter by this certain date, I'm looking for something that with this date as the due date, and I hit apply, and it will filter the view down so that I only get the ones. Oopsie, I only get the ones that are matching that criteria. that I asked for. And that's another way that you can use metadata to help find things besides Copilot helping you to find things by you asking Copilot to find it for you. One trick though is that if you're going to use folders and metadata, you want to also make sure that you have a metadata column for each of the folder names so that when you have a grouping like this, you can group by those logical folder names that people would instantly be like, oh, yes, it should be here. Those types of indicators can be used in the metadata for the grouping so that you have the same type of feel when it comes to grouping things together, but the ease in which you can move around and get into things. Okay. So now we're going to do it. I'm going to show you how to create I'm going to show you how to create a new document library. I'm going to show you the templates that they have there. I'm also going to modify the document library. So I'm actually going to start with one that we already have, but I will show you how to create one. The base document library, which is called Documents, this one right here. It's the base document library. There's nothing been added to it at all. So we're going to start from scratch. We're going to add the title field, and we're going to add a description field, and we're going to add a choice field for the document type, because that document type will be the equivalent of the folder, which is what we'll create the view and the grouping on. Okay. So let's go to documents. Oh, well, actually, no, let me first show you how to make one first. Okay, so in order to make one, you got to go to site contents. So you can go to site contents here, or if you have it on your left navigation, you can go to site contents here. Either way, once you get there, you go to the new button. Now, I should preface this by saying that everybody can get the site contents, but only certain people can create things in this environment. If you have the proper permission to create this thing, you will have the new button. If you don't, you won't. And then you'll need to go ask somebody else to create it for you. So if you do have that capability, you can come here, click the new button, and then click on Document Library. Now, very recently, Microsoft just added these templates. So now you have a few templates that you can use that will have some metadata in it already, or you can start from a blank template or use an existing library that you already have established somewhere in your SharePoint site that it can access and bring in. So I'll just show you that just so you can see what that looks like real quick, and then I'll go back. So I can go to any of my SharePoint sites and I can find any of the document libraries, and then I can create a document library using those same columns, the same whatever specialness that library has in it. It will basically copy that whole library without any of the documents in it into your new environment. But that's not what we're going to do today. I want to show you also these templates, which I used one yesterday, but we're not going to do that right now. But I want to show you that there's the media library template. And when you click on any of the templates, you get to see what it would look like. Now, it doesn't give you this data. This data is just here for you to kind of see what things look like. But you don't get any of the sample data, which kind of sucks. I wish there was a little checkbox that said, give me the sample data. But this gives you an idea of what the things look like, what kind of metadata columns you have, how data is represented. If you have colors, if you have any like indicators, like this has color and indication with the in progress thing right there. If it shows up as a picture, whatnot. It also gives you description here. So you get a summary of what this document library does and what features it has. Now, the cool thing about these new document libraries templates is not only do they come with the metadata columns that usually makes sense for the type of library that it's saying that it is, it also is giving you some workflows. So you have a flow to remind the assigned project lead 3 days before the release date. You get a board view to track the production progress. You get another view, a gallery view, which normally showcases things like big pictures, some other things here. But as you can see, there's some formatting and things like that. So as you can see, there's a lot baked into these templates. So if I go back, here's the invoice one that I used, just so you can see that real quick. Okay. And then there's a learning template. Haven't used this one yet, but it looks pretty cool where you can assign assignments to folks, and then have due dates and whatever the subject of it is. And well, this is more, looks like more for a K through 12 school, but you could most likely, not most likely, and not you could, you can like modify, take this template and then modify it. So say, you know, you want to change this into the actual grade that they got as opposed to the grade it's going to be for. You could make that type of change. So these templates are not baked in stone. You can modify them even once you use them. So whichever one you select, you just select use template and there you go. But you also have your blank library, and that's the one that we're going to look at right now. All right. So I'm going to go to the documents library. The documents library is the one that's created every time a SharePoint site is created. So whenever a SharePoint site is created, you automatically get a document library with it. And that document library is the blank library that only has name, modified, and modified by showing up in its view. It also has an all documents view and no other views except for like the orientation of what the files could look like. Like it could be in a list or a compact list. Auto fit height being the row shrinks and expands based on how much data is in one of the rows for one of the columns. And then tiles will show your documents as big blocks like pictures as opposed to you know, just line items. And that could be cool if you're using the document library for showing different pictures and video. You may want to have the tiles view in use. But people could flip through these types of, I don't even know what to call these. These aren't really views, but the way that the data is focused and displayed. We're going to stay in the all documents view and we're going to modify this from here. So we already have the name. Like I said, I want to add the title so that I can have a long title. I want to add a document type field, which will also be representative of my folders. If I wanted to use folders, if I want to sync this document library to my computer, may need a couple of folders, but again, only 2 levels deep, folks. And the description. That was the other thing. Okay. So first I'm going to add a new file just so you can kind of see what's going on and how things are expanding. I'm just going to click on a Word document. It's going to open in a new tab. I could rename it once it opens up fully, but I don't have to. I could just close it and it will keep its default name. But if I want to rename it, when it finishes loading, there is a, oops, okay, still not finished. There we go. There's a drop down right here where the name is, so I can name it something different. I can name it test doc or something like that. Whoops, that didn't go through. I don't know why it's being funky now. Let me try typing a little bit, but it normally isn't. But let me go ahead. Okay, now it's working. So maybe that is what's happening now. You can rename it. So there you go. It automatically saves. So you see the little cloud up here. It went from the little circular arrows chasing each other to this cloud. So when you see the circular arrows, it means that it's saving, and then the cloud means that it's saved. So it automatically saves it itself. So now when I close it, whoopsie, let me get this thing out the way, sorry. All right, now when I close it, it's here, but let me go ahead and refresh the screen so that you see the new name of the document. So there we go. All right, I'm going to create a couple of columns, new. So one of the columns that I said was the description column. That's going to be text. So I'm going to choose, apologies. That's going to be text. So I'm going to choose the text option. Hit next. It opens up the options for the settings on the left navigation. You may notice or may not notice that there's a little drop down right here. I normally always explore these things because sometimes Microsoft makes some changes and those changes may be something that I want or need to use. So I usually expand. Now I don't normally expand the column validation because that normally is the formula in the user message. So for example, if you had a phone number type column, you could put in code that will check the formatting that the person inputted and reject it if they didn't input it right, and then give them a user message if they, to tell them input it in this format. So this is what that does. So I normally don't go under there because that normally doesn't change. But I do open the more options to see if there's anything else I need under there. And usually I may need something like the required to mark the field required. Now this is a description field. I'm going to name it description. I could give it a description of what it is. Just so you can see what it looks like. Please provide a short description of the documents. Okay. Now you don't have to put anything in the description box, but sometimes it is very imperative that you put something in the description box. If the column that you're creating is one that's the name, you look at the name and everybody can figure out what the heck that means, then you don't need to really add a description. But if you know that somebody might look at that column and be like, what does that mean? Or what am I supposed to put in? Or they might need a little bit more detail, you give them that in the description box. Just like the phone number formatting, you can give them the precursor of the formatting in the description box. And it will appear under the field on the form when they go to fill out the form. All right, the type. I actually want this to be a multi-line field, multi-line text field. And I don't want it to be required because sometimes people may need, may not have a real description that they want to put in or don't have time to put it in. And it's not a die hard, I need this information. So I'm not going to make it required. I also have a couple other options. Add to all content types. We won't talk about that in this. This is a deeper discussion. But allowing unlimited length in the document library, that's saying usually it gives you about 6 lines for multi-text, which I can't remember how much is in each line. I think 256 characters. But allowing it to be unlimited would give them the ability to just write books. I normally would not do that. Sometimes there's a reason for you to do that, but I normally would not do that. You don't want people to write, so much that it expands your view and makes things look like you only have 3 things in the document library when you have 50, but it only looks like 3 things because that's all that's showing up on the page. All right, so now that I've done that, I'm gonna hit save. Oh, and it says I can't have that. I have a column already with that name. Okay. If I have a column already with that name, then I will go ahead and let's skip real quick to seeing how true that is. Because it might be a system column, not a column in the actual library itself. So what we want to do now is we're going to test that by going through the plus again. going to show hide columns this time. And we're going to see, is there a description column in here? And yes, there is one. Don't remember adding it, but it must have gotten added at some point. So this document library is not as fresh as I thought, but it didn't have any data and it didn't have any extra columns displaying. So we're just going to make that column display and we're going to move it upwards. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. It looks like they took away the title column. So I'm going to apply this. We're going to end up with the description column showing up here, and it shows up right here. I can move them, so I can click on it, and then I can kind of drag it to where I want it to go, and it will move in the view. So now I have one column here. I still need one other column as well as my title column. So I'm going to create that other column, and then I'm going to go see about the title column. All right, the choice field is the next one that I want to do. So I'm going to choose choice. That's going to be document type. Again, when you're naming things, and I believe we said this before, but it's been a minute since we talked about this, if we talked about it at all. But you want to make sure that the names are short as well for the columns and no spaces when you first create it. The reason why is because of the character limit. But also if you put a space in it, the space becomes this really long, it starts off as one little space and it can be up to 6 characters depending on how it's being displayed. And the URL, I think it's at that 6 character max. So that adds a lot of characters to your URL. And it can make it difficult for people who may be coming behind you and writing code or doing some other things to the library. It can be very difficult to understand what the name of that column is. So use a short name, very short, no spaces, and then you can come back and rename it. And we will do that in a second. So document type, the 2 doc types here are going to be marketing and sales. And then I can get rid of this one. As you see, you can make these different colors if you like by just clicking on the little color palette thing. I can add choices. I can allow people to add values manually. Now, I normally do not allow for this when it comes to a choice column. And the reason why is sometimes you want to filter on that column, the way that I showed you how you can filter on the metadata in the last library. And if you allow for manual items, say, for example, somebody's trying to put in Air Force. Some people may put in Air Force all spelled out with the regular capitalization. Some people may enter Air Force with no capitalization. Some people may enter Air Force as AF, all caps, the abbreviation. Some people may enter it as AF, the abbreviation, but forget to cap it or only caps one letter for whatever reason. And then all of those things will be all different types of metadata to try to select and try to piece together, and that can just make things a nightmare. So normally I do not allow for adding manually values manually. I have the folks come to me or submit a ticket and say that they need additional value added to the system. I also have the choice of what kind of choices do I want this? Do I want this to be a drop-down menu? Do I want it to be radio buttons? Each one of these is a select only one. But if I want multiple selections, then I can click the multiple selection here with clicking either one of those. Now this, I want it to be required because I'm also going to put in folders that will be for marketing and sales so that we can have those 2 different views that we saw earlier. So I'm not going to allow for multiple selections because it should only be marketing or sales. So I'm not going to allow for that. I'm not going to require, well, I am going to require for the information to be put in, but I'm not going to enforce unique values. And what that means is if somebody chooses marketing, nobody else can choose marketing later. And then somebody chooses sales and then nobody else can choose it. And that means we only get 2 options in the whole library. So I'm going to save this. All right. And then I'm going to move my document type down here too, because I want it ahead of my modified and modified by. Now I'm going to see about the title. Now I normally would have gone under the hide show columns to find the title, but it looks like Microsoft has taken that away. I noticed that the other day, but I was thinking that maybe it was just a fluke with the library that I was in, but maybe not. So the way I'm going to go check that is I'm going to go to the gear and then go to library settings so that I can see, and then more library settings, so I can see if there is a column in here for title, and it is. It is here. Why aren't you showing then? Let me click in here and see if it's going to tell me anything. And it is not telling me anything. So title field seems to be in some kind of weird limbo right now, where I can't add it to the document library, but it is here, but I can't add it. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to create a whole nother column, which I could create here, but I'm going to go back to the library and create it in the library on the library's face. So I can go here. I'm going to make a text field again, just to show you the hide show. There is no title in here, although we saw it. There is no title in here. So we're going to have to create a new column. That'll be a text column, and I'm going to have to name it something different than title, because as you saw, it was included in the library, but for some reason it's not showing up. So I'm going to call this long title. And I'm also going to speed this up a bit because I see that we are starting to get to running out of time. All right. So this long title, I just want it to not be required because they don't have to put the information in there if they don't want to, but I would prefer that they do that to give things a more descriptive name. All right, so I'm gonna put long title over here so that people can, if I edit this and I say this test document, I can put this over here by doing the same thing that you do in Excel. And then I can add my long title. This is a test document. Okay, like that. And then I'm going to exit the view. Now it's complaining at me because I made the doc type a required field. So whenever you have a required field, it's going to yell at you with that either red or yellow highlighting. And then you can click on it and then see the item's properties, hit the edit all, or even select the option because it will let you select it, and then choose the option. It will save automatically itself, and then you can close the item. And see, it did allow it to be added without me editing all the columns because that column should have had some data added to it. So there we go with that. Now we have all of our columns, but I'm going to add one more document, and I'm going to add my folders, and then we're going to work on the view. So this document, I'm just going to leave it as just documents, not going to add any specific other details. It's already here, showed up in my previous tab. So it opened up a new tab. I closed that tab and I went back to the previous tab. I'm going to mark this one sales. So we have two different ones in two different places. Okay. All right. And now I'm going to create the folders. So like I said, one's going to be marketing. And I'm going to give it a different color. And then one's going to be sales. And I'm going to give it a different color as well. All right. Now you may say, but now these documents are not in the folders. You just created these folders for no reason. No, I didn't, because there's a way for me to move these things. So I can go to the three dots and I'll actually move one of these things into each folder. So documents was a sales one and test doc was the I'll move it in here. And tech stock was marketing. So I will move that into marketing. All right. So now, last thing. Oh, and let me refresh the screen because sometimes the screen doesn't refresh and it looks like things are still not in their proper places, but they were put in their proper places. So now everything's in the folder, and I am going to go. Oh, before I do that, because I did say I was going to show you this. Whenever you need to rename a column, you named it short, sweet, no spaces. You can just go to the column, hit the drop down, hit the column settings, hit edit, and then you can name it or add your spaces or rename it or whatever you need to do. All right. Okay, so now we're going to create a new view. Okay, so we have this view with the folders in it, but we want a view without the folders in it, grouping things together like it was a folder. So I'm going to go and use this view as a baseline so that I have all my columns already available in the view without me having to add all of that stuff all over again. And I'm going to hit the save as, and then type a new name for the column so that I can, I'm sorry, the view, so I can get a new view. This one's going to be, whoops, not all documents, no folders like I made the other one. It's a public view, so everybody can see it. If you uncheck it, then it'll be a personal view and only you can see it. Now you can create your own personal views, whether you have the permission to create other views for other people or not. You can create up to 10 of these. But for public views, you can create, I don't know how many, so like a lot of them. So now we have the view, but you still see things in these folders. So I have to modify this view now that I have it. I'm going to go to edit the view. And here's where I could rename the view. I could make it a default view if it's a public view and I want to name it a default view. I can also make the URL shorter, which I really should. So all docs, no folders, because still the same things apply to the views, even though it's not as bad with views as it is with everything else. But that can still cause you some pain as well. If I wanted to add more columns here, I could add more columns. So they don't let you see the columns in the modern view of adding columns. It looks like they let you see the column in the classic view of adding columns. So I could have added it here, but anyway, we made it our own column. Now I have sorting, I have filtering, and I have the tabular view, group by, and a bunch of other things. Since we're running out of time, I'm not going through each and every one of these things. I'm just going to get to the point by grouping by the column that I want to group by. So I want to group by, what was it, the doc type. Now, if I had another level of folder, then I would also put that here and I would have had another column for that level of folder. And that's why I said that if you have the folders, those 2 level of folders or 1 level of folders, you make a column that's named with that level of folder, a choice column with the choices of the different names of the columns. That way, different names of the folders, and that way this grouping will work the way you want it to work. Then you can also go to this folder, or you also need to go to this folder section and remove the folders. So show items without folders. So now if I hit OK, it's going to take me back to the view and I will see what I intended to get. I have my metadata columns and I have grouping that looks like folders but doesn't act like folders. So again, just to kind of reiterate this, if you're using folders, if you're going to sync your document library to your computer, you may have to use folders. If the document library is being used by a bunch of people and everybody is syncing it to their computer because they need to get in and out of this library quickly and do what they got to do without going to SharePoint all the time, then you would use some folders, but you'd still use metadata and you'd have a column that would represent those folder types and then just create a view that would have the items without the folders to help folks that are going into SharePoint directly, and also to help Copilot or any other search capabilities help you with that. All right. Okay, so let's get back to the slides and we will close out. Ooh, and I made it. Okay, so in conclusion, you got to understand SharePoint and metadata and how that helps with your productivity and helps enhance efficiencies and all of that. You also saw how you can streamline the file management process using the document libraries and the metadata and things like that. So mastering the SharePoint document libraries and the significance of metadata is crucial for improving your organization productivity. By applying these tools, teams can manage documents more effectively and collaborate seamlessly. And we encourage you to implement these strategies and continue exploring the robust features to help you maximize your efficiency within the SharePoint system, which will help you with Copilot, which if you see the note, this is one of the needed things for a successful Copilot deployment. You can have a successful Copilot deployment without some of these steps, but it won't be as successful and there may be big holes in your deployment. So you want to do a thorough job, and that's one of those things that we'll talk about when we talk about Copilot. We have a journey that will help you get there. All right. Now, before we leave you, I'm going to ask you to let us know if you're interested in any of our promos. We have 2 efficiency booster special promos. One is for training, where you can invite as many people as you want for a $2,000 training session. For a training session, that would be $2,000. That will be as limited students. You can invite everybody if you want. Up to 2 hours of live instructor-led training. So you will have a live instructor and Q&A sessions, learning the best practices and real-world scenarios, and you'll walk away with the deck and the recording of the session. And then you have topics that would be the introduction to M365 or Office 365, introduction to SharePoint, introduction to Teams, introduction to Outlook, introduction to OneNote, and also understanding the difference between Teams, SharePoint, and M365 groups. So you get all of that. If you don't have unlimited folks or your budget's a little bit more tight, we also have our classes for 150 a student with a minimum of 5 students. And then our last efficiency booster is our apps. So if you are needing an app for expenses or for tracking your contacts or for tracking tasks or for tracking out of office in your office place, you get this pre-built app with your custom branding. So your company's brand, logo as well as colors. Automation for notifying folks when things are happening for certain things. So the expense, the tracker, and the out of office have that automation there. And then there's the how-to guide and the video on using the tool that you will also get. So any questions? I know we ran through this really quickly and we are almost out of time, but I will take a peek to see if we have any questions. Did you see any questions in the window? Right now I'm trying to
Yes,
move
I have. There's a question.
Okay.
The question is, with the meta tags and things like that, connecting to Copilot, would that allow me to say to Copilot, make a file, email a file based on this last due date?
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that's one of those things. It'll make it easier for Copilot to find things way more quickly when you have the metadata attached to it. And if you have a metadata column that's a due date, it can definitely work off of that.
We have another question. Let me see. It says, does the metadata allow you to automate your work process from the document library?
Oh, yes, yes. So you can have different workflow processes. So say, for example, in the invoices library, on the due date, there could be on that metadata of due date, there can be a workflow that kicks off, say, 7 days before it's due to notify the person, hey, you haven't done whatever it is that you're supposed to do. Or one that kicks off to say that, hey, you're past due now, and maybe sends a bunch of emails. So yes, workflow can be attached to metadata.
I believe that's all the questions we have.
Okay, cool. Alrighty. So we will close out on this, and thank you all so much for joining us this month for the Alignable Microsoft Productivity Power Hour. Will couldn't make it this month. He's out there putting out fires, but he sends his best regards. We really appreciate you, and we hope that you would join us for our next Power Hour. I've included a QR code on the slide so that you can scan it and register for the next Power Hour. If you're watching this as a recording and you don't have Alignable, you can join our events for free. You can join Alignable for free and join the event for free. Just scan the QR code, go to the page. It'll ask you to sign up for free if you don't already have an account, and then you'll be able to register for our next events, as well as add those events to your calendar. But as always, we will see you next month, the first Tuesday of the month, at 11 Pacific and 2 p.m. Eastern Time. If you want to get the slides, there's a QR code there. And if you want to reach out to us, you have those QR codes as well as our links and our email address as well on this slide. We'd love to also know what other topics that you may want to discuss. So if you do have those, please scan that QR code and give us those topics. But anyway, we enjoyed having you today, and we appreciate your time, and we will see you next month. Bye, everybody.